I guess we should have thought about those and sat side by side.
Good exercise.
So we're still now in Bucks County, in West Rockville Township. We're going to talk about the Highland Park Camp Meeting, which may have seemed very familiar to some of you who recently read the Ferguson Park Camp Meeting, which is just about 2 miles away. And in fact, this Highland Park has a shared history with Ferguson Park. So the nomination is making the case that the property is significant for its association with the camp meeting movement, as a strong example of that type of site plan and of the building types that went along with the camp meeting. The period of significance extends from the origin of the camp meeting around 1896 and extends into 1960. Here are some aerial views, starting with 1938 down the bottom, which is a little hard to see in this light, but kind of conveys the wooded nature of the setting. And this is really kind of a classic type of site for a camp meeting. They looked for natural settings, often sometimes somewhat elevated. They have close proximity to established transportation lines, and you'll find a cluster of cottages or tent sites very close to a central tabernacle building. The Highland Park started due to a split with the membership of the Ferguson Park Camp Meeting, which had opened not too much earlier. And so you'll see a lot of similarities in the people that used the camp meeting, as well as the types of buildings that they constructed. And the nomination talks a little bit about the different stages of the camp meeting movement and how this particular one fits into the religious resort period and the renewal period. And that's something that you'll find in the camp meeting during the renewal period. They were really reaching out and trying other ways to maintain a viable site, reaching out to youth groups and other groups to use the property. So this is we're going to go through a selection of photographs now from around the camp meeting. Some of the cottages were formerly a little bit more detailed than they are now, that have been stripped down to some of that ornament, but others retain the porch brackets and decorative touches that were typical. They do all have the same orientation, the open porches that were really important to establishing a communal type of property, keeping the tabernacle as the focal point. Bottom picture shows you kind of a backyard view. And you can see there's no well-defined private space that goes along with each cottage. There are tables and chairs out there, but there are no hard lines that define the spaces. There are pedestrian walkways and aisles throughout the camp meeting. You won't find vehicular traffic. They included a lot of nice historic images. So this is, like Ferguson Park, they've established their own museum, and the cottage owners have been accumulating some really great photograph materials. So that was a nice share for the nomination. You can see how some of the houses have changed. The blue house in the top photo is the same as the house that's featured in the bottom photo. So there's been a loss of some of the trim, but the essential components of the house are there. The house in the current photo that's in the center of the bottom image with the second-story porch is the same as the photograph that's in the top historic image. You can see that has retained a bit more trim than some of the others. The home of the Crafnwell family, he was one of the primary builders of this camp meeting, and his home is the center house with the red shutters, and the house above where the folks are sitting on the porch in the kind of the foreground house. Those are the same, so you can see, again, while some things have been lost, others have been retained, but the important part of all of those houses, you could say, was the open front porch. And virtually everybody still has that. There was a dormitory for folks that didn't have their own tent site or their own cottage. And there was a boarding stand where folks could also stay and eat. This is a different vantage point than the top historic photo, but most of those communal buildings have remained. The tabernacle was the central focus of any camp meeting, and here it still is today, and it's very similar to the historic image. So just like Percy Park, we're saying that this is a good example of the camp meeting movement. And proximity to Percy Park is not a problem. They don't have to, one does not have to be better than the other. They can both be important. And actually together, they tell us a more complete story of the movement and the people of this area and how they used the camp meetings. That's it for me.
Thank you. We have 5 letters of support for this nomination. One from State Representative Craig Stacks, Don Duval of the West Rockwell Township Board of Supervisors, the Township Manager, Greg Lippincott, and from 2 cottage owners, Joel Lenz and Lee Carney. I want support for this nomination. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to comment on our nomination?
I'll just briefly say again, I prepared this nomination. If you have any questions, let me know. I need to thank Shelby Swain for starting this nomination. I kind of picked up on her work and made my life long.
We'll let her know that day.
Okay, I'll open it up to the board for comment then.
Would anyone else want this?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Anyone else like to talk? You drove all this way.
I'll say a few things real quick. I'm a 4th generation cottage owner. My great grandfather built some of the cottages back in the turn of the century in 1890s. My grandfather in the 30s, in 1930s, put in the septic system and the water lines. And unfortunately, as being the vice president today, that entitles me to mow the grass, do minor maintenance, and anything else that has to be done. And we live in the Poconos. I spend most of my summer there. And the one thing that's very unique about our camp meeting is we are a camp meeting who is still in operation. Our camp meeting service, we still have evangelistic services, and we have those throughout an 8-day period in the summer. The young gentleman that was here is our assistant youth director, and he's in the process of going to seminary to become a youth pastor. And we have we have cottage owners in our 30s, and we have cottage owners in 90s. So, and Ed is our president. He is a pastor up in Bangor. So we are an operating, and we welcome you all to come see us sometime. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any comments from the board?
Well, I guess I just like to say, it is very similar to Ferguson, and we certainly accepted that, and I wouldn't see any reason that we wouldn't accept this. I think it's just as well documented, and the quality and the nature, the style, and everything that's there is very comparable. It does make a more complete picture, knowing that there are the two in close proximity. So I think it was very well written, easy to understand, and so I would support this nomination.
I think it was really interesting. I can't remember the purchasing one as well as I should, but the way the survives with the employees with the central tabernacle and
No place to hide.
it looks like the plan still exists on the ground, which I think is really impressive. Anyone else?
I just have a question for the residents, or you sort of just spoke. How many other camp meetings are there and are still functional the way you just described as needed?
Very good question. I don't have the answer for you. I know there's not many in our immediate area.
Yeah.
I have done some research on that, and I found out there were only 11 meeting grounds in Pennsylvania currently that function that are religious, but there were only like 4 that went back to this time period.
They'll be continuous.
Yes.
I really appreciated the nomination. I always like to see these different parts of the state in different ways that people come together communally for specific purposes. The only place where I sort of paused was when I delved into the inventory. And I sort of always start my process with the supporting documents and then dive into nomination last. And I saw Gothic Revival listed as on the vast majority. And then I went to the photos and I didn't see them. And I think there's a little bit too much emphasis on this being Gothic Revival. I think you're accurate in the description when you call it vernacular and late Victorian, but I don't see this as strongly Gothic Revival.
I would agree with that, but I believe they're actually vernacular versions of Gothic Revival. To me, the building simply have some of the characteristics, such as minor amounts of trim, and also just the gable facing front. Is enough. There's a tiny little piece of Gothic Revival, and so you are trying to tone down a little bit, but I think that the vernacular version.
If they were more steeply pitched front gables, I would just tone it down.
I have to agree with Jeff. I think a front gable is not a complicated thing. I agree.
This sort of came up too with some of the Mount Gretna nominations. I think we just tweaked the wording to say rather than Gothic Revival style, Gothic Revival influenced.
See, I think some of that brick and rock was classically called Carpenter Gothic.
Right.
Carpenter Gothic's quite a bit different than Gothic. It's clearly Carpenter Gothic. Yeah.
I'm curious about the universe of these summer camp meetings, and we've seen 2 camp meetings, and I remember 2 nominations that the city of Mount Gretna and Eaglesmere were associated with Chicago.
Yes.
That's a great, theme that I don't know that we have gotten around to.
Just comment on that. We have a history of that also. We have one of the recent things that came out was that in 1915 we had a Chicago talk. I have trouble with that. I have to see it. It was educational and it was cultural, and we had 7,000 people at our camp. And we wonder in amazement where they put 7,000 people. But that's what it said. And we do have a background with that too.
I agree with Richard. I think the Chautauqua movement is under-recognized for social history.
Anyone else?
Well, I appreciate this is going to pass, but I would encourage you, these are little tiny buildings, and to start a restoration project amongst the people who own these cottages. I mean, what would it take to put back some of that brick or to go and just redo a facade and to make it look the way it looked? Half of them already look that way, and so I think you could sort of encourage, almost do a little pattern book or something, and try to encourage the owners of these cottages to restore it. They're very tiny buildings. They're kind of easy to put back. So just encourage that. Yeah. You ready for nomination?
I am.
I recommend we accept this to the National Register. And category is social history. Yeah, social history.
Oh, no. Okay.
Right?
A and C, yeah.
A and C.
Yep.
And we accept this nomination.
Richard? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so motion carries. Congratulations.
is wonderful.